Hi everybody, Mike Hancock here, and in this section we've got Alison Mooney. Ali, I'm not even going to say how long we've known each other, but welcome, welcome, welcome. It's fantastic to have you. And that sign that everybody sees at the back there that says she laughs, I think we're going to hear a little bit of Ali's laugh on this call as well. So you are a people expert. And before we get into doing something formal, just I'm interested to see, tell people how you got into working on worldwide stages and sharing better ways to communicate and how relationships really work.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's lovely to be on with you tonight. Really good friends, and there's just a lovely synergy here tonight.
Yep.
It wasn't always though. I wasn't always in the speaking business at all. I was in the airline industry until I was 40, and I had an epiphany. I had an insight to help people respond and react to life. And when I learned it, I saw in my own relationship how much I could use this better. And so I went to America and I got trained and certified to speak on this particular subject. And it has transformed my own personal life. Then people got interested in, because I wanted to tell the world, and so I never stopped talking about it. And they invited me to come and share, and that's how I got on the circuit, as it were, speaking about how to have better relationships, how to get closer to each other, how to engage better. And oh my goodness, it's such an important factor right now as we see what's happening in the world. And so here I am, Mike, and I'm so excited to be here to share this tool because it really made something incredible in my relationship.
Yeah, it sure did. And I mean, you build such great relationships. And I know on your first slide, you've got some of your background and some of your credibility awards and things like that. You've got more awards than Steven Spielberg. So,
Rubbish.
But they're very, very justifiable because you really have helped hundreds of thousands of people everywhere from goodness knows Nepal to Guatemala over the years really understand themselves better, understand how to communicate better. And the reason why I was so keen to have you on the call is because this is a time where, as I was joking with you off screen, some people are locked away with people they're just getting to meet, even though they've been married to them for 30 years. So communication now is really, really important. So let me click on the share screen button, and I'm going to hand it over to you, and we'll come back and talk at the end.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Well, everybody wants to have a meaningful and purposeful life. And I believe that if we get this information inside of us, we will have much better relationships. And so, Mike, it's all about being aware of who we have in front of us. And when you discover that, and there's many personality testings out there. Oh, I think I've done so many. But what I love about this model that I'm going to share tonight, it's so simple, and you carry it with you. It's easy to identify people. But the most important thing is it's not about the categorization of somebody. It's actually about what we need. And so there might be people that are watching tonight and just saying, oh, you're not going to put me in a box. I don't blame you for thinking about that. It is not about putting somebody in the box. However, if we want to have some fun tonight, we're going to do something for ourselves. We're going to find out who we are, because Socrates, 2,400 years ago, he said, know thyself. And he also said an unexamined life is not worth anything. And I think sometimes in this lockdown experience, the real you is going to rise, and sometimes we can rise in the negative rather than the positive because we haven't learned what our strengths are and equally what our weaknesses are. And you must know that weaknesses are just your strengths pushed out of balance. So I can have wonderful strengths, but they're the very things that I default to is weaknesses. Like I love to talk. My weakness can be I overtalk, I butt in, I get louder, and I don't give anybody platform to speak as well. So they're my strength. My ability to communicate has now become my weakness. So I think we should have some fun with those that are watching tonight. So the next slide, Mike, it's just a little mini profile. And what I'd love you to do is just to look at those 3 descriptive words on each of the page. The enthusiastic talk of funny. Are you that more than you are easygoing, diplomatic, patient? Or are you more assertive, decisive, productive? Or are you more the thoughtful, detailed, and tidy? Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, I'm a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Usually we are. But for the sake of tonight, I'd love you to just to choose one of the ones, the quadrant that best describes you. So I'm the top left, the enthusiastic talker funny. So what are you? All right. So with that in mind, I want to talk to the 4 types. And so we're going to put a language around it for you tonight. So the next slide, Mike, gives us the language. The top left are the playfuls. We're going to describe them as playfuls. They are parties waiting to happen. They are the most challenged right now under lockdown. Most challenged because they need desperately to connect emotionally. Now, the top right is the powerful. These people like to get things done, and we're going to talk about under lockdown what that looks like. The precise is the bottom right. These are our thoughtful, detailed, tidy. These are the ones that are pursuing and researching everything at the moment, trying to find out what truth is. There's so much out there, and everybody is kind of thinking, what is truth right now? These ones are digging deep and they're researching. In fact, they're the happiest on lockdown because they love to get in and they love to isolate themselves and they like to get away. But can you imagine if you are in lockdown with one of these people and you're the desperate playful? There's a challenge right there. And last but not least is our beautiful green, which they are the peacefuls. They're the easygoing. In fact, they've welcomed this time too because they're just cruisers, they're relaxed. And they quite like the idea that we're actually breathing right now. The world is breathing. And they are really emulating that in themselves as well. So here we have the 4 types. Now, the top 2 are the extroverted types. They get their energy from outside. Now, I never like to use this term, and I never have in my talks, because I think when you don't understand the meaning, you can look at it in a negative stance. But the bottom 2 are the introversions. These ones actually get their energy from inside themselves. So they don't need the external to light them up or they don't require other people to do that for them. And in fact, when they're with people for too long, they get drained. And so it diminishes in them. They've got to find that place where they are actually alone, where they can top there and rejuvenate themselves. So the top 2 are the extroverts. The bottom 2, they're much more self-contained. Now, the ones on your left, the playful peacefuls, these are the relationship ones. These people hunger for connection. The ones on the right are the powerful and the precise. They are the task. They like people, but they don't have to be with them 24/7. And we've got different motivations. The talker, the playful is the talker. The powerful is the doer. The precise is the thinker. And the peaceful is the observer. Already, I hope you're thinking about who you have in front of you, those significant others in your life. What would they be? But let's first keep with us so that we can get an understanding of who we truly are. Now, we're not always just one. There's always a blend, and yes, we are normally a blend, and you can be a blend of playful, powerful. These people think like this: do things my way and you'll have fun. If you don't, you won't. So those ones are very much task, but also relational. If you're a powerful, precise blend, you are very tasked. So if you're a parent that's a powerful, precise, you're wanting people to march at your drumbeat. And so this is where the problem lies, because you may be connected or with a partner that is a playful, and they don't see the world like you see the world. And this is where the trouble starts, trouble in the camp. Now, there are many there's no certainties in all of this, but there's many probabilities. So I'm talking about the blends right now. Playful, powerful is a blend. Powerful, precise blend. Precise, peaceful is a blend. I'm married to a precise, peaceful. Now, it's been very interesting observing him in lockdown, because he's had a list an arm long, and he's ticked off that list. And yesterday at 1 o'clock, he cracked open his rum and he poured himself a drink, and he's been on the couch ever since. So he knows he needs to do his tasks and he works hard, but rest is his reward. And now he's rewarding himself. So this is interesting. Playful peacefuls are very relational. Now, what you can't be born, but you can learn it. And those that are watching that are business people, of course, you will have learned different parts of the traits of others that really isn't natural to you. You can't be born a powerful peaceful. A powerful peaceful is the natural born leader powerful, the reluctant leader peaceful. However, let me tell you, as I've traveled the world, as I've traveled the world, I found I met a lot of peaceful leaders, and they are beautiful. They're the Mahatma Gandhis. They're the Nelson Mandelas. They gather. They're not threatened by people that are better than them. They are beautiful leaders. We can all lead, but we lead in a different style. So that's a learned behavior. And I'm a businesswoman. I've had to step into that powerful stance. That is not my natural bent, but I can do it. And I've learned to speak the language of a powerful. So when I'm around the negotiating table, I know how to speak their language. It's short, to the point, logic. They don't want wafters. And I have a tendency to waft. That means dribble on and go around circles. But I've learned how to be short, to the point, Reader's Digest with the powerful. You can't be born a playful, precise, diametrically opposed. You can learn those traits. However, we usually marry an opposite, and I've got an opposite like that. And you can learn the traits, and I believe marriage and relationships help us to do that, because sometimes we're polar apart, but as we move into our relationship, we get into sync with each other and we become more complete. In my 50 years of marriage, I am such a more complete person because my husband has taught me some of the traits of who he is. And I think that's a beautiful thing. There's more to relationship than just, what we see. There's so much more. There's so much more depth. So those are the blends that I'm talking to at this point. So when it comes to lockdown, or yes, in those places where we can't get out, we need to be thinking about who's in front of us. Because if we don't, there's going to be problems. Because we all face things differently. Change, for instance, for example, playfuls welcome change. When this happened for them, they got excited because they love variety and flexibility. Now, for the powerful, they usually are the drivers of change. They have, within the first few hours of this lockdown, they were thinking big picture. What am I going to do? How am I going to get this done? If this is my business and it seems to be falling apart right now, what can I do? Because they are visionaries. And so they're always ahead of the game, looking at how they can accomplish. So they're not worried too much at this point, but as things go on and businesses are hurting, they'll be looking for new innovative ways. They truly are quite entrepreneurial. Now I've just lost my train of thought there. So it's, the change. Precises will change if they're given the information. So that's why they go in and they research, they dig in, they get their data, and they just wash themselves over with data. They're data crazy. They want order. And peacefuls are the greatest resistors of change, unless they get the why. And that's what I always say to you, powerfuls. Powerfuls, you sometimes can step into the lockdown, into your bubble, and you can say, we're doing this, that, and the other without the why, and this can upset a peaceful. A peaceful, if they're given the why, they'll change. So just that, knowing that will really help us. So when it comes to the stress, we actually, we all feel stress for different reasons. So if we could go, if you could go to the next slide, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you, Mike. These are the stress busters, but how we experience stress is usually playfuls. We won't click yet, Mike, I'll just explain. Oh, okay. Playfuls, whether you can see that they're stressed is usually they'll go online, they'll do online shopping. This is how you see how they they work out their stress. They get stress when they're bored or when they're isolated, socially isolated. That's another one where they feel stress. The powerful get stressed when they can't take charge, when they're out of control. And this is really tough on powerfuls right now because they're not in control. Something else greater has taken control of their world. The precise, they get stressed when life is not perfect. And right now, life isn't perfect for them. So they can feel the stress. We all feel stress in different ways. And peacefuls feel stress when they're left holding the bag. So for them, they'll just cruise through this, but once the finances kick in and they're thinking, how are we going to pay the bills? That's when stress rises for them and they're left holding the bag, having to make decisions. So I love this model because it's simple. So how do we de-stress those that are in front of us? How do we de-stress ourselves? Okay, Mike, for the first slide, playfuls de-stress with just fun. If you can bring fun into the equation, they will just realign themselves, and honestly, you'll have them back to the person that you just love because they need fun in their day. Now, the precise, their stress buster is alone time. Now, this offended me only last week with my husband. He just pulled away and he just went off, listened to his podcast, listened to other digital things. And I was emotionally craving for something because I'm a playful and I need that socialization. I need to talk. I need to share how I'm feeling. I need to talk to hear my thoughts. But he had locked into this room and just spent the whole day there. So until I understood this, I knew about it. But what we need to do is call out the people that are in front of us out, because we must do it in spurts only. If my husband had stayed there all day, which he was really gunning for that, I would have had a real meltdown. And equally, he doesn't want me in his ear, bleeding his ear all the time, because I can do that as well. Okay, let's see what the stress buster is for the next one. The peaceful want nothing time. Now, let me tell you, peacefuls they work very hard. They're constant workers, which is fantastic. They keep going. They're not as fast as the powerful and the playful, but they get the job done and they do it well. But if you don't give them nothing time, this stresses them out. And that's how you can de-stress them. Just allow them to have nothing. I've come into the lounge and my husband's looking at the ceiling. And I said, what are you doing? He said, nothing. I love doing nothing. Leave me alone. He's got the remote. And, you know, if I give him that, then he becomes more responsive to me as well. But we mustn't stay there because this is where we'll get disconnected and we don't want to be disconnected in the bubble. And last but not least, find something to get the powerfuls to do. You know, they've got their list and they're organized and they've done the fence. Within the first week, these people have actually achieved all that they wanted to. And so they get restless and then they're trouble. So always find something and always say to them, I really need you. Because that gets their sense of, they get that sense of achievement when we can say, I really need you. And it's important to say that to a powerful. But they love to fix things, they're fixer-uppers. But their time frame is now. And this is the difficulty, because if you're a powerful and you've got a peaceful child, this can bring on a lot of frustration because peacefuls take their time to do it. They are very strong. In fact, can I say that the peacefuls are the strongest of all personalities, internally strong. They will ride this better than any other because they've got incredible resilience. And so they are internally strong, but I can also say on the other flip side of that, they are really, they've got a hidden will of iron and you can't get them to do something if they don't want to. So already we have a problem because Mr. Powerful wants things done now and this Mr. Peaceful, he just wants to do it when he wants to do it, not when you want it to be done. And so they sort of comply, but they're not inside complying. So this is the rumble that we have in terms of how we get along with each other. Now, what else? I was just thinking about how we flatline. And flatlining is really being vulnerable to being depressed. I think that's probably how I would describe it. So how do we flatline? For the playful, when life is no fun, they flatline. For the powerful, when they're not in control, they flatline. For the precise, when life is not perfect, they flatline. And for the peaceful, when I have to hold what's here in my hands, because they don't like to take the full responsibility of that. When life is too chaotic, that's when they flatline. So we've got to be careful of how we are seeing our family, seeing those that are loved ones, these people that are in our lockdown, people in business when you're part of a team, meetings as well. You know, that's interesting. Zoom meetings are very interesting. Here's Mike. I know he's got some peaceful in him, and I love it because he's just sitting back listening, but he's going to craft some great questions for me. But you see, the peaceful is happy to listen. The playful can go off on tangents, where you're probably noticing, even though I've got a pattern here, we can go off on tangents. But the powerful have a tendency to dominate the meeting, and the precise can come to the meeting with critical skills. Look, we've tried it that way. It just didn't work. Oh, come on, Mike. You know that happened 5 years ago, and we tried it, and it didn't work. So you see, we all contribute even into Zoom meetings differently. So how do we help one another? And the key learning for me tonight, and for hopefully you, because I go back to it on a daily basis. The next slide, could we have up, please, Mike? Because we have wants, people, but we have needs. We can live without wants. Wants are, playfuls want fun. Precises want things done perfectly. Peacefuls want things, no conflict, harmony. And powerfuls just want to get things done now. That's their wants. The human spirit cannot live without needs. And that never changes in a person. We can learn other traits, but if you truly are a playful, that one could go up now, Mike, thanks. The playful, that's oxygen to them. Attention, affection, approval, and acceptance. They'll get out of bed for this. And you might be thinking as a powerful, oh, for goodness sake, do you mean to say I've got to tell my teenage daughter there's no one like her and she's the princess? Isn't that narcissistic? No, it's not, because that fills the tank. We carry this incredible, and we make decisions on it. This tank, everything goes through that tank. And if that's not being met, then we have World War III in our midst. The precise's need is different. They want sensitivity, space, silence, and support. They want you to think about why they're upset. Don't ever ask a precise what's wrong. They'll throw you into a guessing game. But they've actually said it sometime during the day what's wrong with them, and you haven't picked it up. And so we need to say, I'm sensing, sweetheart, because you've got to use empathy with these people. They're the most sensitive. They're the most intelligent. They love music. They love going within. And if you can bring this to them, to the table, just in a spurt during the day, 5-minute spurts all through the day, I know that your family and your people that are in front of you, your significant others, are going to come through this, and they're going to come through it whole. Now, I know out there already, there's things that are happening that are just not pleasant for people. But if we could get this message and hold our families in this space of giving them what they need, that's fantastic. Next one, thanks, Mike. Now, the peacefuls, this is what they get out of bed for: respect, value, and harmony. They want to be known as the human being. And you see, powerfuls want to be known as the human machine. This is why for powerfuls, they don't have great tolerance for sickness. It's a terrible thing for them. It's overwhelming because we're threatened. There's compromised people out there. But these are the ones that are going to get things and do things and find solutions to it all, because they're so solution driven. So for the peaceful, value, respect, harmony. Just tell me who I am. I love you for the way that you're so patient. You haven't caused conflict amongst your siblings today. That's the kind of language we use for peacefuls. They want to be known for who they are. Now, the last one, powerfuls, they want credit, they want loyalty, and they want appreciation for all that they've done. And sometimes we think, oh, do we really have to do that? He's got a head that large, he'll never get through the door. If you don't give it to them, they'll be looking elsewhere. After this lockdown and when everything's back to normal, if we're not giving these people in our lives this, then we're going to be challenged. And that's what we don't know. We don't know this. And this is your insight today. You know, it's not our differences that divide us. It's our inability to celebrate the differences. And if we can celebrate through this avenue, through giving people what they need, I guarantee you'll be a much more connected, wholesome family. I just want to talk about questions. Listen to your family, because you don't need to do profile. You just listen to the questions they ask. Playfuls ask, who's going to do that? Who? They want to know. It's all about relationship. The precise don't ask who, they ask how. And they're sitting there tonight thinking, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to manage our money? How are we going to go to the next day when these things are falling apart? They're questioning the how because they want detail. Peacefuls are not questioning the how, they're asking the why. Why do we need to do this? And when they're given the why, they'll do it. And Powerful's question is not who, they ask what and when. What needs to be done and when does it need to happen? Now, Mark, I've had a few people feed through my Facebook feed some scenarios that are just so and so insightful, I think, because I got one from a lady. She said, my husband's a powerful and I'm a peaceful, and I've got a playful child, and I've got a little bit of a precise in a child, but I think they're more peaceful. My husband, for the first week, was just, okay, we're in here, we've got to figure it out. So he's looking for solution. And so what he did, he went for a walk every day, listened to his podcast, fed his soul, did all the stuff that he had to do, but then he'd come in and try to sort the family up, get them marching again to their drumbeat, his drumbeat. And so this is where the conflict lies, because Miss Peaceful, she just wanted to lie on the couch and just let it breathe. They're beautiful right now because they're allowing us to breathe. Our world is, we can thank the Peacefuls because they're unruffled by this. Now, I know in front of me tonight, there are going to be listeners that are from the different 4 categories. And so how do we move forward? This is your key learning, I have to tell you. So what else do I need to think about? One size doesn't fit all. And you could have somebody that's very much like you. Usually in a second relationship, it's usually the same because you've gone through one and you think, I'm not going to have that one next time. And you are deliberate. I'm not going to talk about affairs, but I find in affairs, we look for our own kind because here's a playful at home. She's getting criticized because she can't even fill the dishwasher, and playfuls wilt under criticism and poor reviews. And so what happens, it's no fun at home, so they'll go looking for somebody that's fun. So you can see why in affairs we look for our own kind, but they don't work always because we're driven by just playfuls having fun all the time. There's nothing getting organized. Precises, they look for their own kind because they want an intelligent, deep conversation, so they find that in the precise. But over time, can you see 2 precises in the same house? One comes out from the bathroom and says, look, the toothpaste, you've squeezed it from the middle. Why did you do that? So they're nitpicking at each other. Can you imagine 2 peacefuls in the same household? What should we do tonight, sweetheart? Oh, I don't know. What would you like to do? Oh, you choose. No, you choose. And they vacillate like this. And the powerful, 2 powerfuls, well, there's a lot of this, bargy-wargy. And so here we have, I just want you to become aware, no one relationship is better than the other, but I tell you which is the easiest. The one that has a quadrant in common. I'm a playful, peaceful. My husband is a precise, peaceful. We have commonality in the peaceful. We don't mind vegging out, watching a movie together. We have commonality. Now, if you're in a relationship that is powerful, precise, and your partner's playful, peaceful, that's the hardest one. It can work if you know the stuff, but really it's hard if you don't know it. So that's just something to be mindful of. How's our time going, Mike?
We're going to shoot into questions in the next couple of minutes. Because I've got a few
Before we do
questions.
that, Mike, could we just talk about the love language? Because I think that is,
Yes.
in fact, you might even like to bring me on another time. I love this. Do to others as you would have them do to you. That's the ancient writings, and I believe in that. But what could we go further by saying treat others as they need to be treated, not as you do? Now, I'm passionate about the 5 love languages, and the book's out there. You can get it on Amazon. But there's 5 ways that we love. And for 20 years in my marriage, I felt so unloved because I didn't know this. Now, Mike, can you put up the 5 ways that we love? There's words, there's touch, there's acts of service, there's quality time, there are gifts. I'm a giver of words. I love receiving words. That is my love language. I love to encourage people. I do that all the time. It's natural for me. Now, my husband isn't a words person. I have actually tested him. We traveled for 300 kilometers and I thought, I'm not saying anything until we get to the destination. He never said a word. And you know what? He got out of that car and he said, wasn't that a lovely trip? He was happy, but I wasn't. And so I gave him a bit of my lip. And let me tell you, one Christmas he gave me, because his is acts of service. I've never woken up, and I catch early flights because I'm a global traveler. I catch early flights, and I've never woken up ever without a cup of tea next to my bed.
Right.
You see, he's acts of service. He waits for me in the driveway when I come home. He takes my bags, he takes them up. And all this time I failed to see he was loving me. And I'm hearing all the time, I work in schools and I hear children say, my father doesn't love me. And you get down to it and you pull all this apart. And it's because dad is a time person and that child is a words person. You know, my husband gave me a Christmas card and I was 40 years in the marriage. This is his Christmas card to me, folks. It said, to Alison Mooney from Brian Mooney. That's it. 40 years in the marriage and it wasn't even a love. It was that he's so factual. And so, you know what I said to him? Excuse me, Mike, but I said, talk dirty to me. Do it again, write it again. He had no idea. He's just looking at me so like, what are you talking about? So this is such a vital part, not only personalities, but how do you love? And are you talking to your significant other and the children? That child might need quality time, or that might need the word touch. Touch is like an electric current for somebody that has touch as their love language. And all men think, oh, touch is the thing. No, you start digging deep. You might have a specific love language. Talk to your family, communicate with their family about what your needs are. We're in a marriage after 50 years, and I have to say it's personality and love language that's been the glue. And it's the same with your people. You can love your people in business through the same avenue. Okay, Mike, I've said enough.
Ali, you've said so many good things. We're going to pick this up, but you know, for those of you that are really enjoying this and want to know more, I would definitely recommend what is an absolutely timeless book, which is Pressing the Right Buttons, that Ali wrote a couple of years ago now. But you know,
yeah, it's 27,000. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely a best-selling book, and it's a fantastic book. It's sitting in my book collection somewhere as well. And The Treasure Tree. Now, that's something I don't really know too much about, Ellie.
Oh, my, that is for children. And it's my publisher said, write the children's book. When I found this book, I couldn't compete with it. It's the most beautifully illustrated book, but every child up to 10 years old, when that's read to them or they read it, they know who they are. It's about these 4 amazing animals that go off on a treasure hunt. And honestly, it is fantastic. Highly endorse it. You can get it anywhere. You can get it on my web or you can get it on Amazon. It's a great book.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for those of you that would like to talk to Ellie directly, you know, we'll have her contact details up on our site as well. But you know, you can book her to come and talk to your team or do it virtually as well and get people connecting together, because that's what I want to actually talk about now, Ellie, is as we just come back into our little hub here. So, you know, we're sitting on Zoom today and we're recording this, and, you know, there's lots of people sitting on Zoom or some other platform like this. Now, if I'm a very quiet, peaceful, or a precise, and I'm sitting in a meeting at work with all of my playfuls and my powerfuls, my boss, the powerful or the playful or whatever, I didn't get a word in edgeways and I had to fight to be heard around a live table. What's my strategy for getting heard around a table like this? And maybe I can answer that question myself, but I'd love your insight on it.
First of all, because I'm learning Zoom too, Mike, so I'm just a learner, but I heard from a guy today that you can actually mute people individually. So when you see this little microphone going like this, the talking person, but we can sometimes do that. But however, I would suggest, and this is what I do around the table when we have family group conferences, when things aren't right and we need to talk. So I think specifically for a peaceful, they need to be able to say to a powerful, look, I'm going to speak for 5 minutes and you are not allowed to interrupt, because they have the tendency, because they've got the solution and they want it. And I would say, have some etiquette around the Zoom table, the meeting room table. And I think it's probably, that's the way that I would do it. It's not aiming it at anybody, just saying, look, and I would always suggest too, in a meeting, especially for peacefuls, they do not like to be Johnny on the spot. Like if I said to you now, Mike, tell me a little bit about this, which was way out left field that you had no understanding of it. Peacefuls freeze. They can't even think about the question. Yep. So it's preparing them, just saying, in our next meeting, can I ask my Mr. Peaceful down there, could you give us some information on this, that, and the other? I tell you, Mike, they'll blow you out of the water. Yep. And this is it. If I said to somebody that had listened to me tonight and I'd say, I'm coming back next week, and they were a peaceful, they would just be amazing. But they need time. And we don't give them time. Powerfuls, they don't like silence. And sometimes it's nice to say, you're nodding there, Mike, and if it's just pretend you're a peaceful, I can see that you're nodding here, Mike, and have you got something that you might like to add to that? And then just make sure that you mute everybody. I think this is etiquette for valuing everybody.
I agree, and I think that there's two ways you can deal with it in these sort of online forums. One is we do this in our masterminds online. You have a function on Zoom where you can literally put up your hand. And so that's a great way for a peaceful or a precise to go, oh, I've got to say something. Up goes the hand. And then whoever's controlling that meeting gives that meeting over to that person. But if I'm running something and I've got a talkers, like I used to be a sales manager, and of course, you get a lot of talkers in the sales manager, and a lot of them are powerful. Most of them are playful in the field, so they like to chat. One of the great things there is to literally, basically, from this point of view, keep everybody on mute, as you say, which is great, and then essentially allow that person, so to say, now we're going to hear from this person, and put up your hand if you want to speak. That way, even the playful has to go, oh, I want to speak. And then you can keep it short as well, because, of course, these meetings can go on and on and on. And, I think it's great at the moment, because with us using online meetings, we tend to be shorter than what we do. So I like to mess things around by, saying to people, we'll have a 20-minute Zoom meeting, whereas most people book out an hour. And so that way you can really pack things down there.
That's good.
I realized something as you were talking, when I looked at the slide with how people like to be treated, the 4 different personalities, how they like to be treated. I realized that in our core team, there's actually 4 of us, and I realized that we've got 1 of each, which is really interesting. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we get along so well. And when I was in corporate, sorry if anybody's listening who was sitting around the board table, I realized that most of the people in the senior management team were actually precises and powerfuls. So therefore, there wasn't room for a peaceful or a playful there. but that causes a great problem. So if you're a CEO listening to this and you've got a bunch of precises, maybe you run a tech company, you've got a bunch of precises sitting around, it's not necessarily a great thing. So,
no, it's not.
So what would you say is a way in which people can, now that they're more virtual, now that we've got less interaction with people on a day-to-day basis than we've ever had, and we don't know when this is going to change. Lockdown will change it. You know, people will be slow to go back to their old ways, I feel. So what's your view on the great ways that we can interact online and involve everybody and make sure that we're supporting everybody in the way in which you spoke about?
So those that are leading, like hosting, if we don't know the personality things, we're going to miss it, because when you just talked about who you have on your team, this is amazing, Mike, that you've got all 4 types. Because as Peter Drucker said, in every organization, we need a people person, a thought person, a steady person, and an action person. So what do they bring to the table? Playfuls bring innovation, ideas, creativity. Now, you know, you're going to have conflict in a meeting, because if you are deliberate about choosing your people around the table, we need all 4 types. Powerfuls bring focus and assertion. They keep this thing moving. They're the talk in the machine. The precise bring method, structure, compliance, the rules. We so need the rules. And the peacefuls, they bring diplomacy, mediation. They bring clarity. I love the peacefuls because they need time to think things through. They sleep on it. Our minds are amazing. We're lying in bed at night, and while we're sleeping there, it is working. And that's why whenever I talk to a peaceful, if I'm on Zoom, I say, can I catch up with you in a couple of days' time and we'll talk again? Because you see, they are letting it just wash over them, and they'll come back with sharp clarity. We underestimate those beautiful peacefuls, and I'm right into that. And I'm meeting more and more chief executives that are.
Yep.
So what you're saying here is, as the host, if they don't know their people well enough to know what they bring. So for Miss Playful here in a meeting, I would limit, I would say, this is what I want you to speak on. You've been given 5 minutes. We have to do a bit of preparation work as hosts, I think, because I've been on a few of these, and there's hands going up, and it's just these virtual hangouts. Sometimes they just achieve nothing, because it's all just about what I've been doing, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I mean, for the leader, and I didn't touch on all leadership styles. The playful is the inspirational leader. The powerful is the visionary leader. The precise is the, he's the strategic leader. Brilliant. Because they set goals out there and move back from the set goals. So we all have our brilliance. Peacefuls are the diplomatic leader. So if you know your leadership style, but who have you got in front of you? And if our leaders don't know who they are, they're going to miss it. It's going to be hit and miss, and it's going to be chaos. So I think it's, again, carry that on your shoulders, Mr. Leader, and see who you have.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the other things too, Ellie, is that it reminded me as I was looking at the slides of something that I've always taught people since I knew about this stuff, which has been 20 plus years now, is hire a profile and make sure they've got the right CV.
Yeah.
Rather than take a CV that the profile may not fit the team. So you can have all the degrees and all the experience and everything under the sun, but if you're not the right profile to fit in with the team or the corporation, then it's not going to work. But if you go, okay, we need a peaceful to do this. So, you know, our marketing manager, she's a peaceful. And when we put out the job, we wrote it to attract a peaceful type of person. We didn't want our marketing manager coming up with 25 harebrained schemes. Lundy and I have got enough of those between us. We want her to create surety with the market.
And she's such a secure person. She's driven by security. She would be so good there. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one thing. But I think this leads to another thing. And that means this leads to massive opportunity for our listeners and viewers out there, because And, you know, if I think of my boardroom table when I was a corporate 15, 18 years ago, it is now 18 years ago, boy, we could have done with an Alison Mooney consultant sitting in on those meetings. Now, it would have driven you nuts probably, but it would have brought a certain life to a board meeting. So if you're a consultant out there and you've got clients that you can identify are sitting, you know, in certain profiles and they're all sort of leaning one way and you know you're the other way, you have a massive opportunity to pitch that to them and therefore get involved in their strategic work and their leadership work in these online forums, which means for you as a consultant making money when you otherwise may have got the flick at this stage. Ellie, let me just ask one final question as we bring this to a close, because you alluded to it. You're sitting at home, you're surrounded by a family that, you know, for the most part, probably for many people look like strangers. The last time you probably looked at your children was when they came out of the womb. And so, so what would you say is the number one thing that everyone who's listening to this should do to build a stronger relationship with their family during this time?
If you want a meaningful and purposeful life and have intimacy with those people that you love, because at the end of the day, we start and end with those people, don't we? We end with, well, it's not start and end, but your family is really important. And so the one thing I would say is those key needs. If we don't get that under our belt, if we don't learn that the playful needs attention, affection, approval, and acceptance, they hunger for that. If we don't give the precise, I've just gone blank, a sensitivity, space, silence, support, if we don't give the powerful credit for all that they've done, and if we don't give the peaceful respect, it's just hit and miss. You're not connecting with the heart. And this is what this whole thing is about. It's emotional connection, because we buy, we sell, we negotiate, everything goes through that emotion.
Absolutely.
Emotional tank. So if we can get that on board, I'd be a happy lady. I'd be happy just to go to the next hunting ground, whatever it is, if I knew people had got that under their belt, because that's the thing that's been powerful in my life.
Ellie, it's such good counsel, and I just want to thank you so much for being on our call today. Folks, Ellie's a genius when it comes to, you know, communication, understanding people and pressing the right buttons so that you can succeed in times like this. So, you know, I would really suggest you connect with her and involve her in your organization and what you're doing. Ellie, thanks very much for your time.
It's been my pleasure, my absolute pleasure, Mike. Thank you.